release the damn files and release them now. Release everything.
If this does not implicate Donald Trump, why wouldn't you say release everything? They absolutely have to show us what they're all hiding. If there's nothing to hide, release it all.
But all of that information is out there. Why not just put it to rest and say, release the list?
Because, they should just say, listen, this is what it is. Do you want?
And now look how the tables have turned. So that was a small compilation of what these hags on The View were saying before the list came out. Now this is what they're saying after. Now, mind you, all of these women are around the same age as Trump. Everyone in these files is going to be in their 70s, 80s, 90s. They're all older people. Remember, Epstein bought the ranch in New Mexico in 1993. Do you know how long ago that was? So he was rich back then. Whoopi Goldberg's first marriage was in the 70s. So she's super old. She was around all of these people. These women were there. These women intimately knew these men. I don't give a fuck what she says. Nobody, I mean nobody, is asking to borrow a stranger's private plane to go anywhere. I'm not buying it at all.
On your G2.
And it looks like they said no thanks.
Yeah.
So in other words, anybody can be on this list.
Well, this is my point, because I'm telling you, when I tell you people are trying to turn me into, I wasn't his girlfriend. You used to have facts before you said stuff.
But Trump is on the...
Whoopi has a history of also being a liar. She's also, everyone knew Whoopi was gay. Everyone knew she liked younger women. There were rumors about her in the 80s and the 90s. Her ex, Ted Danson, had also allegations along with her. Apparently, she helped destroy his marriage, and they had some things happen together, to say the least. So to see these women backtracking after they had so much to say, it's like they only cared about this list because they thought it was going to hurt Trump. Then it turns out it helps Trump's because he was exonerated. Trump snitched on Epstein and gave him up to the police and said he was a bad person and banned him. But all these other people were still begging him for money and for favors. But why? What do these people have in common with the man? They know millions of people in Hollywood. Epstein's not an actor. Epstein's not a director. Why are all these actresses and actors, why are they all asking Epstein for favors? What are you doing for Epstein? Are you recruiting? What are you doing?
Well, that's 38,000 times.
Well, I can't speak to him, but I'm speaking about me because I'm getting dragged. People actually believe that I was with him. He drops like.
See, the problem is with women like Whoopi Goldberg is they think that time erases their past, and it doesn't. Just because it was 30 years ago, Whoopi, or 20 years ago, doesn't mean it didn't happen. Yeah, you're older now. You're an old lady. But when you weren't an old lady, what were you into? What were you into? What were you doing? And she's talking about the same thing everybody else is going to say. Well, there's no physical evidence that I did anything. Well, not yet, but there are stories. The problem is, if you're going to believe words in these files, then you're going to have to believe all of them. You can't pick and choose. You can't say, well, I want to believe this, but I don't want to believe that. No. Either you're going to believe it all or you're going to believe nothing. Personally, the way I'm looking at the files, I can't make heads or tails of it. I'm reading the files. I'm comparing them to the Jeffrey Epstein interviews. I learned that he is a genius mathematician that was working on a fringe science to build a new technology that's never been invented before, where he could use high energy physics to look into the future, looking glass technology. And apparently Epstein, he was successful. That's all I've gotten from the Epstein files, is that Epstein could see the future. I'm not sure if it was a device that he built and he could just give it to somebody else and they can use it, Or was it something that required him personally to be there? But I know people from all over the world were fighting over him because he could tell them their future. But he worked with Israel. I believe he's Jewish, but he might be something above Jew. He might be above them all. But I know Israel and the United States both have access to this technology. I know they're and then think about it. It could be because of Epstein giving them this access to technology to see the future. Is why Israel even still alive to this day. Why they're able to always be a little bit ahead of everybody because they have this technology. Epstein bought this ranch in New Mexico because all the scientists were being laid off from the Manhattan Project in 1991. And all those scientists were still in New Mexico. So he said, well, while they were there before they would move, I bought the ranch so I could house them. We could start working on this technology that I wanted to find. Basically, I wanted to create technology to know the unknown. And I wanted to be able to see the future of the stock market. So I had these high energy scientists, physicists using mathematics to try to create the technology. And he called it genetic algorithms. Apparently, I'm getting something completely different than everybody else from the files. Apparently, they needed children. They needed women. Women, I guess they used a lot of women to go get children. They used women to breed children. They used women for a lot of different things on this island. I don't necessarily know why. We don't know. I'm reading through the files like everybody else. I was able to discern that they were working on some kind of technology to see the future. That's all I could get from that's all I got from the files. But I keep also reading about these women who were involved with Epstein. They're denying it later, but the women who lived at the Playboy Mansion are denying sleeping with Hugh now. Women do that over time. We know these women were involved with Epstein. They were involved with the people around him as well. They were celebrities. They were famous back then. Come on, look at was Whoopi just a hell of an actress? Come on. Is she just the most beautiful thing you ever seen? Come on. No, she had other purposes. She was good for other things. So let's not pretend that when you point a finger at somebody, expect 15 more to be pointed back at you. It's just crazy to see how now they're questioning the files. Why you didn't say that before they came out? Why didn't you say, hey, there should be a disclaimer? We're all in there. Everybody's in there, but no. They wait until now when their names are coming up and there's questions about them. Watch. Let's see what else she says about these flights.
300 names.
Yes.
And it's like flood the zone because when
Yes.
you're looking, there are people like Marilyn Monroe who's dead.
Elvis.
Yeah, a lot of people, because a lot of the reasons your name can be mentioned are news articles, third-party emails, contacts. Again, wealthy, famous people often cross in professional and social circles, so that's not the surprising part.
Sounds like an excuse to me.
If they find enough evidence and really good evidence, because that list has a lot of crazy names on it, and it's almost like
What do you mean a crazy name? What's so crazy about names? What's the crazy part? It's a name. It's people's names. Like, how is that crazy? Be more specific, Joy.
way to muddy the waters so that you say, Whoopi's on the list, right? And so am I think. Why? Because
That's crazy how she threw Whoopi under the bus before she threw herself.
Finish this, please. We're on the list because we were at a party or a wedding or something that somebody might have been. That's what I found out anyway.
Yeah, no, I
was at Trump's wedding to Marla.
Right.
Maybe Epstein was there too. Who knows?
I don't know.
So that
and it just shows you how nasty these hags are. This bitch who talks all this craziness about Trump all these years, she went to one of his weddings. But I guess he wasn't this evil man back then, so what changed? So he ran for politics. Everybody knows you're a fair weather friend. You're a bad person. But to watch how they're now shifting, and they don't feel the same anymore about the transparency and blah, blah, blah. It's all bullshit. It's all lies. But if there's stories of them doing things with kids and other women, then yeah, that stuff's going to be true. That's Hollywood. That's Holly weird. That's what the industry is definitely 1,000% known for. That's all the industry is really known for. So, and then the industry is based in California. California passed the laws where if you're caught molesting a child, you don't got to even register on the sex offenders list anymore. So California protects pedophiles. So when I see these Californians talking about the Epstein list, it's like, what do you care? You guys have literally passed laws to protect pedos. So you don't really care. This is all about Trump. And I'm just loving how beautifully it's backfiring in their shitty, nasty faces. I love to see it. I'm ecstatic right now watching this and watching them all quiver and squirm and lie and try to get out of it. There's no way. Once people hear you're on that list, I don't give a fuck if you were on there being a valet. They're going to say you was a pedophile valet. People are going to bury whoever was on that list. And these women are admitting they were a part of something back then, and we all know they're going to just lie about it. Therefore, there's no way to credibly get out of this. I don't care who they are. But the only person that they can say in the files that they admit that, well, he snitched on them to the police and they hated him, Trump. It seems like they could see the future. They knew Trump was going to be president one day. They couldn't get him under their thumb. They made him an enemy. Also, they talk about him so much, but not say anything.
Means that I'm not guilty, obviously, but these other ones, how are you going to decide who's really guilty and who's not?
I think
how do we know you're not guilty? And guilty of what? What are they saying these other people are so guilty of, but you're not guilty of? Make it make sense. What is she I don't even know what she's referring to. Can anybody who can tell me what is she saying that other people are guilty of, but she's not guilty of? Guilty of what? What is she apparently not guilty of? I don't know. And she's not being very clear about it. Great.
I think it's very clear because if you look, you know why my name is there because someone was looking for a plane and that.
Oh, wait a minute! Is this Whoopi Goldberg, the plane salesman? Oh wow! I thought this was Whoopi Goldberg, the black ugly actress that was in The Color Purple. I did not know she was a fucking broker for airplanes in the 80s and 90s and who knew? Who knew Whoopi was the go-to girl for planes? Why would anybody contact Whoopi fucking Goldberg about a plane? A million people in Hollywood. Why not call Danny DeVito? Why not call Schwarzenegger? Why is anybody asking little nappy head Wooly? What's her name? Whoopi? Why is anybody asking her? It doesn't make sense. These excuses don't hold water. Why would somebody go to Whoopi Goldberg about borrowing another rich guy's plane? A guy who's not even in the industry, so he doesn't owe you a favor. He's not an actor or nothing. So why would they go to you about a plane from Epstein?
That's what people do. They go to all the people who have private planes and say,
Right.
do you have one?
And you didn't get on the plane.
I didn't get on the
No.
plane. I didn't know they were looking for a plane.
Yeah.
I had no.
You know, that's crazy. Didn't Prince Andrew? He said he never met Virginia. Bill Gates said he never been to the island, never got on a plane, never did this. All just lying. But this is how you know Epstein is still alive, because not one of these people is willing to snitch and give up nobody else and say, let me tell you what these symbols mean. Let me tell you what really happened back then. Let me clear it all up for you. Because if Epstein was dead, nobody would be afraid of him. They would just tell you everything. But people are afraid of Epstein. And that's why there's not one snitch on this entire case. And we really can't even make heads or tails of what we're reading in these files. We know there's something there, but we just don't know what. And with everybody lying and not one person to say that person, there's no snitches. That's why the case isn't really going nowhere. Not one snitch on this entire case. Even Whoopi still lying 1,000 years later, still an old ass liar.
No idea that the plane that I was supposed to be on was no longer available. So I'm named in there like Whoopi Goldberg needs a plane.
There are a lot of people that are
Marilyn Monroe is on the list.
Yes.
There were plenty of people that were that. There are plenty of
Elvis
people
also.
named.
Yeah.
I think that
Elvis was on the list. Get the hell out of here. Shut up, Whoopi.
My name is in the files. Yes. And what does it say? It says, Whoopi needs a plane to get to Monaco. John Lennon's charity, it should say Julian Lennon's charity, is paying for it.
Yeah. So in other words, anybody can be on
this charity.
So let's see here. It says Whoopi Goldberg needs a plane to Monaco. John Lennon's charity is paying for it. They don't want to charter. So I don't understand why this is even in the files. Epstein wasn't a plane broker. Maureen's Ways first fundraiser to support water humanitarian conversation. Prince Albert and Princess Charlene will attend in support of their friendship of the WFF, depart New York City. I'm sure the jet owner could attend the feat and get fuel reimbursed. From Epstein, 2013. Why does he know Whoopi Goldberg, and why does he care about her needing a plane?
It should say Julian Lennon's charity is paying for it.
Yeah. So in other words, anybody can be on this list.
Well, this is my point, because I'm telling you, when I tell you people are trying to turn me into, I wasn't his girlfriend.
Of course you weren't his girlfriend, but you had to be more than just a friend, because why else would this man who has no connections to you, he's not your friend, you're telling us, you don't work together with him, he's not an actor or a director, why would he care about how you're going to get to, why would he care to find you a jet? Is Jeffrey Epstein a jet broker? I'm pretty sure he's a lot more important than that. And he's richer than all these other people you know. Why would he care about why would he care about getting you a flight? What was in it for him? I haven't seen any aspects of this whole Epstein situation where there wasn't a direct benefit to him. Everyone's working for him. Everyone's doing something for him. He does favors for them in return. My question is, what did Whoopi do for Epstein? How did he know her? What did he ask her to do? And she's lying to us still.
You were too old for him.
I was not only too old, but it was at a time, where this is just not, you used to have facts.
Okay. So you're saying that she wasn't the broker. She was begging people to borrow their plane. Okay. So how did she even know Epstein in the first place to beg him for his fucking plane? Epstein is not an actor. Epstein is not a director. Epstein is not a producer. She is an actress who works in Hollywood. Why does she know him? He's a scientist, a mathematician. Why does Whoopi Goldberg know him? Well enough for him to care about helping her with her flight arrangements? Why would that be any of his business? What was the exchange? What did she do for him? That's all. It's a simple question. Nobody does anything for nothing. If somebody comes to me and says, hey, Rico, can you do me a favor? Can you give me a ride here? Guess what I'm going to give you? I'm going to give you $5. And then I do the calculation. If it's worth $5 in fuel, I'll give you a ride. But am I just giving out free rides to random people for no reason? Absolutely not. It doesn't hold water. It doesn't hold water. It doesn't make any sense. So that's why I keep saying she's lying. And she's not even willing to snitch. That's crazy. Look how old she is. And she's not willing to snitch and say, well, actually, this is what really happened. This is what the code is. This is what this and this means. This is what I remember from. There's not one snitch on this entire Epstein case. She really didn't know him. He knew her. What does that even mean? She knew him enough for her to contact him. She had his email or his phone number. She had his contact. Trump is the whistleblower. He did a deposition with the Freds. That's not, see, the thing is this, Trump wasn't involved. So Trump doesn't know, he doesn't even know what was going on. He doesn't know everything. Trump had his suspicions. Trump still thinks the guy is a freak. He thinks that Epstein was just all about maybe sex with young girls. Trump doesn't have any idea about the science behind Epstein's research, why people loved him, what they needed him for, why people from around the world are fighting over him. Trump doesn't know any of that. That's why he keeps saying it's a hoax, because Trump thinks it's smaller than what it is. This is actually one of the biggest mysteries of mankind to date. We don't know anybody who was as connected as Epstein, and we don't know why. Because nobody's willing to tell us, because they're afraid. Epstein is still alive. You know, if Epstein was dead, like people keep saying he's dead, people would have no problem throwing him under the bus. Yeah, he used to do this, he used to do that. This is what this means. No. Everything we're reading in the Epstein files, there's nobody corroborating and telling us, yes, this means this. This means that. I was there and blowing a snitch, blowing a whistle. There's nobody on, we don't have one mole. We don't have one defected insider who came to us and say, hey, look, I used to drink the kids' bloods. I used to have sex with the kids. Give me immunity. Give me immunity from prosecution, and I'll tell you everything. Because that's how it goes with these types of cases. You know what? Look, if you give me immunity, I'll tell on everyone around me. And they'll put you in witness protection, and then they'll bring you to trial. There's nobody, which is why nobody can go to jail. There's no evidence. Now, in Europe, it's different than the United States. So, yeah, you can do a fake arrest of Prince of Andrew and say, oh, yeah, we're arresting him on corruption charges because he knew certain people. It's not because he was caught actually committing a crime with them, but they're just saying his association was an embarrassment to the family. But there's no specifics at all, which is why he's already out immediately. See, in the United States judicial system, a preponderance of evidence is going to be required. Paperwork or a list describing things that were done to kids or to women or whoever, if there's no physical evidence, there's no video of it happening, and if there's no witness that actually has proof that they ever even mentioned, you're wasting your time indicting these people, because before a jury, the jury's going to say, hey, look, you can't even show us that this person ever even met them. You can't, yeah, you're saying it was raped this kid, he raped all these kids. Where's the proof? I hear what you're saying, but your words is not proof. These are 30-year-old allegations, 20-year-old allegations. Why didn't you come back then? Why you didn't say nothing until now? Was there a financial incentive? Who else did we talk to? There's all these different things that are going to keep coming up. And in no time did anybody say, hey, let me go get a rape kit from the hospital so I can have a DNA sample of these different celebrities or millionaires and showing that they were inside me. Even Monica Lewinsky had enough foresight to not wash that blue dress after Clinton got all that hot skeet all over it. Even she put that in a glass case for a rainy day. So you mean to tell me all this crazy stuff's going on and nobody's collecting a DNA sample, but we're supposed to believe that, hey, this is going to get a prosecution. Prosecute for what? There's no proof of something. Somebody telling a story about some other people is not proof. It's just a story. And the only time that's ever worked in human history that of us to a celebrity was R. Kelly. R. Kelly's the only man in jail right now with zero physical evidence and only just stories. They literally arrested him and convicted him in the court of public opinion. Since no one's going to protest that, he had to convict him under the Rico charge. But why would you need the Rico if you have evidence? Rico is for when you don't have evidence. Why do you think Diddy only got 4 years and he shouldn't have gotten that? It's because there was no actual proof or evidence that he did any of these. There's no proof. So without the proof, there's nothing to convict on. Or you're a winner in appeal. So again, you're going to need evidence of wrongdoing. You're going to have to be specific. Somebody's name's coming up in files. It's not going to be enough to convict them in court. But in the court of public opinion, you are fucking executed. No, from to the day Whoopi Goldberg, that old miserable hag lying piece of dog shit, until she dies, they will forever call her an Epstein apologizer, a pedo. They're going to call her everything in the book because she's in those files. Because for years, spewed lies and hate and vitriol towards Trump. And it made a lot of us feel weird and uncomfortable where no one watches the show because it doesn't feel right. Yes, are there blacks and gays who hate the country, hate the president, They hate life. Yes, they watch those shows. They love it because there's nothing else for them. But for average, regular Americans who are just living and regular people, no one likes that show. They have the lowest ratings. They can't stand it. But they keep it on the air the same way they keep CNN on the air. 0 ratings, but it's just kind of like they're there for traditional purposes. People are just used to seeing it there. Now, on top of the ratings, you have the allegations. And she's even saying they're dragging me. They're calling me this. They're calling me that. Well, you're in the files. And you're one of those people that said, release the files. Anybody who's in the files, this, that, and the third. And that includes you now. Like I said, these women think that because it was so long ago, it never happened. But these files just came out yesterday. So to the public, you did whatever you did. That was last week, whatever you did to those kids, whatever you knew happened to those people, and you didn't say anything. It just happened, in our opinion.
My name is in the files. Yes. And what does it say? It says, Whoopi needs a plane to get to Monaco. John Lennon's charity, it should say Julian Lennon's charity, is paying for it.
Yeah. So in other words, anybody can be on this list.
Well,
I mean, Corey Feldman, he tried to reveal everything. No one believed him. Whoopi didn't believe him. Or did she already know what Feldman was saying was true? And she's one of these evil, nasty Hollywood people that covered it up. You mean to tell me, Whoopi and Corey Feldman, Whoopi's older than Corey. She was around when he was being abused in Hollywood. She knew all the directors. She knew all the men that were messing with those boys. Did Whoopi ever blow the whistle? Did Whoopi ever come out and speak up against that? Never. And she knew everything. You don't remember Whoopi and Harvey Weinstein? You don't remember all those videos and stories? How much she praised and loved him? Fuck Whoopi Goldberg. She's evil. She's one of them too. And if I found out, and you got to think about it, did she ever go to those special pizza parties that Obama used to hold? Where they would order, they would fly in pizza, hot dogs? Grown ass people having pizza parties with ice cream, and and then we find out later what that was code for. And then they're walking the jerky, and they're talking about the jerky and the pizza. And then you start to wonder that all these people were connected, and they all wrap back around to Epstein. Why? Why was Epstein their only connect for pizza and hot dogs and jerky? But surely they could procure it from someone else. What was so special about Epstein? And the only thing I think special about him, looking glass. The fact that he could see the future and he could make a lot of people very wealthy. I mean, he's the father of Bitcoin. Not some Asian, not some Japanese guy, Nakamura, whatever. Epstein. High energy physics, advanced mathematics, genetic algorithms. That's Bitcoin, that's looking glass, that's the vaccine, that's everything that we've been seeing happen to us. Epstein is the author, he's the painter. All of this came, but where did he get it from? He didn't just come out of thin air. Where did he come from? This is the most connected man in human history. He knew everyone from all over the world. Did you know he was there when Alinsky was being elected to be president? He was involved in that too. No idea why. Think about it. The early 90s, he bought a ranch not too far from the U.S. military base and had enough clearance without being a part of the government to recruit the Manhattan Project scientists, thousands of them. How could he afford to pay them? To pay for the housing and pay for the base and the silo to be remodeled and rebuilt in New Mexico. Where'd the money come from? There are more questions than answers, but I can tell you this. The reason Epstein, I say he's still alive, is because not one person is saying, look, I did it. I fucked the kids. I ate the kids. Give me immunity from prosecution and I'll tell you everything. Not one snitch came forward, admitted to their wrongdoing, got protection from the government, and is willing to tell on everybody and tell what's really going on. We cannot make heads or tails of these files. All we know is that they are pedophiles in the files. That's all we know. I look at this because I see science. All I'm looking at is the data, the science. The man was a brilliant mathematician. He used, like I said, the scientists from the Manhattan Project, and he recruited scientists from all over the world. I'm looking at him as being an advanced theoretical physicist. I don't look at this. I don't care about the sex stuff. Everybody else is worried about that. I think all that stuff's a smoke screen and distraction. But Whoopi, these women are scared. They know something, and they're not talking because Epstein is still alive. He's still around. And these women are going, and these women now, they die. However many years in the future that's going to be. This is going to destroy their names. They're never going to be able to have a peaceful dinner somewhere where someone's not going to scream out, pedophile. Because you're in the Epstein. There's no denying you were in the files, and you can't really explain why you're there. Hey, I was looking for I remember back in the year, I don't know, 2008. I was looking for a flight from New York to LA. Epstein never sent me an email saying, hey, this guy Rico Limbaugh needs a flight from Manhattan to Los Angeles, Santa Monica. So, okay, I'm a random person, Whoopi. You're a celebrity, but you're a random person if you don't know him. How did he know you? How did he know you well enough to type an email for you? Was he a secretary? No, he's above the president. Do you guys understand? Epstein was above the president. Bill Clinton was going to Epstein Island with no Secret Service protection. And he wasn't flying on Air Force One or Air Force Two. He was flying on the Lolita Express with no Secret Service while he was president of the United States. Whoever Epstein really is, he's above a president. He's above all of our leaders. I'm starting to think he's from beyond the dome. He sounds like he's from where's Thor from? Where they say you go into the cloud, there's Zeus and there. It seems like he's from there. He's from not Narnia. What's the name where I forgot where they're from. But it seems like Epstein is something bigger than anybody else. I watched that. I broke down the Steve Bannon interview segment by segment. We spent 5 hours on it. Some of us are still in this chat. We're all there together. And this man was way more than just some trafficking. He didn't even talk about kids or women or trafficking. He talked about how women have a sixth sense where there's a creepy person that walks in the room and it makes their hair stands up. And I'm thinking, according to everyone else, that's the feeling people get around you. But maybe that wasn't the feeling they got around him. That's just the new information we're being told. And we're being bombarded with Epstein. But they never talk about his research. The man had an office at Harvard. He had a lab at MIT. He had a lab on his island. This man had built a whole lab in New Mexico in a silo that was 10 stories deep and hired thousands. And no one's ever talked to me and said, Rico, by the way, this is what he was researching. This is why he needed all the scientists. This is what their studies were. This is what they were doing. No one talks about it. Everyone just keeps talking to me about sex stuff. I don't want to hear about the sex stuff. I want you to talk to me about the science and why they needed so many kids to experiment on. Yes, I do know there were certain kids from European countries that they had sex with, but the kids that were coming from the Caribbean, where Peter Nygaard is, the kids that were coming from Haiti, they weren't having sex with those kids. They were experimenting on those kids. Fauci was getting all those black kids who were orphans in New York, the ones they all died when he was doing all those fake experiments with AIDS and all that. It's literally all history. It's not even hidden. They experimented on black orphans. All the orphans died. They're doing the same thing in the Caribbean shortly after. What do they need all these black kids for research for? What were they trying to make? Because I know it's 2026 and all my black friends are dying. I lost 7 black friends at the 24-hour fitness on Slauson in Los Angeles in the past year and a half. Since when do all black people just start dying while they're at the gym? I'm just watching. And then I remember there was a special injection that came out It kills some people, but it doesn't kill other people. And now I'm starting to think, okay, that's what they were researching. And their research was successful. But nobody wants to make these correlations. Nobody even wants to have these conversations. Nobody even wants to talk about it. I don't know. My audio is not good? Let me see. I did not know there was any audio issues. Every chick in the USA has been touched on. Yeah, they want to be touched on. I mean, people signed up to be around rich men. It doesn't matter. Sickle cell anemia research. I don't know. Sickle cell is already killing people. It seems like it's killing people. I don't think they were trying to solve sickle cell. I think they were trying to figure out how to make it kill more people. It's not, bro. It's no secret that the country feels it has a black problem and has been looking for a solution to the black problem. What if Epstein found it and Bill Gates agreed with it and they brought Kamala Harris on board? I don't think she has any love, or I think she has a high disdain for black people too. And I remember when she was running for let's look it up. I remember when Kamala was running. I remember she was running for office. All she ever talked about every fucking day was the vaccine. That's all her whole campaign was about, was getting people to take these shots, mainly black people, her own people.
That was easy. Thank you. I want to urge everyone to take the vaccine when it is your turn. It is really pretty painless, and it will save your life. Every person who is in the hospital sick with COVID-19 right now is unvaccinated.
And you see how she would just sit there and lie to you? She doesn't like black people. I know back in California, she was using black inmates as slave labor to fight the fires. Even when she knew they were innocent of the crime, she wouldn't release them from jail. She held them over because they were the slave labor to go out and fight the fires. She was literally sued for racism and all kinds of stuff. Okay, cool. Biden has the same track record when it comes to how much he can't stand black people and hates them, which can you be mad at him? Look around. Your kids are in a racial jungle, and guess where your kids are? Getting their asses beat up, or they're gay, or they're both. Literally being dominated in a racial jungle. The same one Biden wanted to protect you guys from back in the 70s, you shunned them. So they gave in, they gave you the racial jungle you wanted, and now look at the results. All your kids can't read, they're all gay, your wives are leaving, everyone's a feminist, there's no stability, men have lost everything. Trump comes along, he's basically trying to pull the country together. I'm not talking about we need to be together with the people that hate us and these Marxists and communists. I'm talking about just the fabric of the country, the infrastructure, our economy. I'm talking about the things that matter, literally disintegrating and falling apart. So again, people like Kamala Harris, if somebody came to them and said, hey, I made something for blacks, now we can give it to everyone, but it's really going to only affect them the most, she'd sign up for it in a heartbeat. She'd be on board. But Trump, he doesn't have the stomach for the type of carnage that's being waged against the American people. He didn't have the stomach for it. I'm pretty sure they brought it to him and he turned it down, that he wouldn't go for it. But Kamala and Biden were more than happy. They did the numbers. Before we found out all the immigrants were on welfare too, who did everybody assume was on welfare? Because historically, that's all we've ever seen. Welfare, Section 8. There are certain people that the truth is, if you remove them from the gene pool, you could save the global economy 40 to 50% annually in just in entitlements and charities. Because every year we have to do stuff for that one community. No one else's community gets shit. But you got to do all these different things to get their kids to go to school and read and want to work. But at the end of the day, they all want to just be communists. They all want to just get paid to just sit around. They don't want to work. They don't want to go to school. They just want to basically complain about the world and get money and blame slavery and Jim Crow. We see it every day. So was it a shock to me when I'm looking into this and I'm like, oh yeah, it seems like they just wanted to wipe out that one group. That's why they did all those experiments. It makes sense. It makes more sense than anything else I can think of. I haven't seen anything else. There's not one other suggestion that's came across my desk that made more sense than these people beg too much. I remember, okay, look, you saw Bill Gates talking to Epstein. Let's see here. Let's look it up together. Let's see here. Let's read about it together. Epstein, Bill Gates, poor. Let's see what they say about the poor. Let's see here.
Jeffrey Epstein asked Bill Gates, how do we get rid of poor people as a whole?
Now, let's be honest. If you live in the United States of America, what is poor people code for? Who is, when you're saying something about poor people, what is that code for? What people do you think of when you think poor people in America? Who's the one group that always brags about how poor they are, how they can't get a job, how they have no money, how they grew up eating dog shit and cat shit on bread and government cheese? Who is the only group of people in the United States that still consider themselves poor genetically and culturally? They are the poor. When you're saying we want to get rid of poor people as a whole, if you're an American, who would you consider that being code for? Exactly. That's code for black people. So am I surprised when I'm reading the Epstein research and I'm looking into it and I find out that they're talking about they want to get rid of poor people as a whole, and then they make an injection, but they only experiment on black kids because they're trying to find a genetic marker or something that only specifically going to affect them more than other people? Yeah, there's going to be collateral damage. There's going to be non-blacks that are going to die from it. But the main targeted demographic is going to have the most effectiveness. No, I'm not surprised. No, I'm not shocked. It makes the most sense out of everything. Nothing else in those files makes heads or tails until we start reading about, hey, who did we want to get rid of? And then I started looking at the fact that nobody wants to talk about the scientists. No one talks about the research. No one tells me what he was studying in those labs. What was he doing? So I figured it out. I understand why. It makes sense. Whoopi, she's not known for being a friend to black people. She understood as well. All these people are connected. They're just mad that all this is coming out. But let it all come out. What do I mean? Why? What's the point of even hiding it anymore? What's the point? It's too late now.
Both Joy Behar and Sunny Hostin, get this, to not bring up Whoopi Goldberg's Epstein involvement, as this will create more backlash from both fans and non-fans of The View. Now, the struggle with this is that both Sunny and Joy are refusing to stay silent over the fact that ABC decided to suspend Whoopi Goldberg, as they want to defend her as much as they can to save the program on their own terms. Because,
you know what's crazy, Hog, that you say that? Everything about Epstein 2 years ago was considered a conspiracy theory. Everything about the vaccine was a conspiracy theory 4 years ago. Everything that is proven to be 100% fact today, at one time was called a conspiracy theory. There's nothing I'm even saying that's theoretical. I can literally explain to you in detail how I got to where I'm at. I can tell you. So, I mean, there's more data behind what I'm saying than there is about 90 other % of everything else you believe. You might want to just pay attention and take notes.
Let me just say one thing about that real quick. The fact that this is in turn causing a lot of a, very divisive situation within ABC, where you have Joy Behar and Sunny Hostin disagreeing with ABC executives and producers to not bring up the subject of Whoopi Goldberg and how she was involved with that document. They want to essentially just keep defending her. They want to keep blaming Trump. They want to keep blaming Trump supporters. They want to keep it up with that narrative. And they are already blaming that Trump supporters are bullying or, putting her through a humiliating phase for being involved in the document, and how they are blaming just Trump supporters in general for bringing up that fact. And that really is a very weak argument. The fact that you have Sonny and Joy just putting it like that, oh, it's Trump supporters and it's their fault for waking up a lot of people, and bring up the subject time and time again that Whoopi Goldberg is involved in the Epstein files in some capacity. Now, look, the reason why a lot of people have a problem with this, even long-time loyal View fans, the reason why they even have a problem with this is that Whoopi Goldberg openly lied on air. She said this a couple of months ago, that she was never in the Epstein files in any capacity, zero capacity at all, and that she never was affiliated with the Epstein social circle or the whole Epstein circle in general at all, period. And then now she has to go into damage control. We all saw what she did on the air at the table, where she was going over that document word for word. The way she was going over that document, if you guys actually examine that clip, she looks very frightened. She looks very jumpy. She looks very much, scared on the set of The View, as if she knows exactly what's coming. And she knew what was coming because now she's suspended throughout the month of March. Now, look, we know one thing about this is that this is already creating massive tensions behind the scenes at ABC, since both Sonny and Joy refuse to act like they are hiding something on air. Disney CEO Bob Iger is already in the process of preparing a statement about the recent drama surrounding Whoopi Goldberg, as this is a plan for damage control to the audience. However, the board of directors are advising that coming out with a statement for Whoopi Goldberg will only create more pushback from non-fans and fans in general. This in turn is also creating a struggle between Iger and the board behind the scenes on mentioning the recent revelations surrounding Whoopi Goldberg. To make matters worse for Whoopi Goldberg,
well, yeah, it's getting worse. I'm thinking Whoopi was involved. I think they're going to find out that at one time, the way they were soliciting those black women in the Caribbean, Peter Nygaard. Do you guys know about that? Were you guys seeing those videos about Nygaard and what he used to say? Are you guys familiar with that? Let me see if I can bring it up. Let's see here. Peter Nygaard, black women. This is why I think that they use Whoopi. This is where Whoopi came in, I think.
Hey, a lot more than that. So how much do you want for it? Let's bid. I'll bid him anyway. He's gonna outbid me.
I want you guys now. Somebody just said, "Let's hear the data that you're referencing." If you're talking about my data, where I'm saying that they did experiments specifically on black children, orphans, from these different disasters that have happened in the Caribbean and orphans in the United States, they were experimenting on them because they were trying to make a bioweapon that would harm them more than it would harm the rest of the population. That's the data that I can show you. I can reference it. This is going to be one of my pieces of evidence right here. Listen to what they're telling these black women, why they want them to basically become breeders, and they want to use their placentia, their DNA, and they also want the bodies of their aborted fetuses. They needed specifically black DNA for experiments. So let's see here. It doesn't matter what the black under the orange pedo. Okay, you can't name one of Trump's victims. There is no Trump victim. You can't call him a pedo. And then if you're from California, if you're a Democrat, which it sounds like you are, you guys have laws to protect pedos. So you guys like pedos. So it sounds like you're complimenting Trump. If you're a Democrat calling Trump a pedo, but you supported Senate Bill 145 that decriminalized pedophilia, where you don't have to even register as a sex offender if you're caught molesting a child or doing sodomy or whatever, then no one can take you seriously. You guys protect pedophiles. You're a pedophile. And it seems like you just want Trump to be one of you, but where's your evidence that Trump did anything to a kid? We have your evidence. You guys even actually have laws that you have created to protect pedophiles. So it's a big difference between you and Trump. And you're speaking aloud about yourself. You're not really talking about Trump at this point. But anyway, this is Peter Nygaard and his other associate. This is down in the Bahamas. Listen carefully to what he says.
I bought about $50,000 worth of eggs. Yeah. If you have abortion, that's very valuable. Umbilical cord, and placenta, even your period blood is so rich with stem cells. Yeah. We regard it as waste, and it actually should be. It should be captured as recycled, and it shouldn't go to waste. It's life for somebody, Yeah. And it's life for George Bush. No, the best eggs are 16 to 18 years old. Those are the best eggs. 16 to 18-year-olds.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So you may not be our top candidate.
No, that's fine. I know it's my business anyway.
And notice he slaps them around like a pimp. By the way, you women are like 30. I want 16-year-olds.
How much do you want for it? Let's bid. It should be. It should be captured as recycled, and it shouldn't go to waste. It's life for somebody, Yeah. And it's life for George Bush. No, the best eggs are 16 to 18 years old. Those are the best eggs. 16 to 18-year-olds.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So you may not be our top candidate.
No, that's fine. I know it's my business anyway.
So how much do you want for it?
So you got people like Peter Nygaard, these other, and they were all in the same vicinity. Epstein Island, Little St. James, was only about 6 miles away from where Peter Nygaard's island in the Caribbean. And their island was only 7 miles away from the island that Joe Biden and his brother owned that no one ever talks about. They're all in the same vicinity. And they all have this thing where, I don't know if you guys remember the earthquake of Haiti. They took a lot of those children that were orphans, and the Bill and Hillary Clinton Foundation, they took all these kids, and no one ever knows what happens to the kids. The stories are they were taken to Epstein's Island for research and for experimentation. They were trying to develop something. They needed children. The children that everyone usually experiments on around the world, and it's something that is not really a secret, are orphans because there's no parents, so there's no one to miss you. Yeah, they talk about, they do have breeding farms. That's a real thing where there are women who are there. They give birth to children. The children don't have a social. They have no birth certificate. So if they die, there's no one to miss them. They're not registered anywhere. If they're sold, if they're killed, whatever. But this whole trafficking of humans, not all humans are the same. There are ways that they can do it where you can't even trace the kids. You can't trace the people because there's no paperwork on them. I mean, they were just talking about it the other day, how you might have thought you had an abortion, but what they did was you gave birth to the child. They told you it was an abortion, but they just extracted the kid from you, and then they incubated the baby, and then they grew it to a certain size, and then they sold it to somebody who kept it like a kid or a pet. And they do all types of things with these aborted children. They're not just all sucked out of you with a vacuum and they just die. Why do you think in certain states in the United States, they do late-term abortion, but people never ask what happened to the remains of the kid? You never know. You never ask. So they keep the placenta, they keep the umbilical cord, they keep your blood, they keep all that stuff. And then you find out later they actually kept the baby and they intubated the baby and they kept it alive and they grew the kid. Then you have a whole person with no social security number, no birth certificate, and it's an actual child that you can sell. People don't want to talk about that. But a lot of these kids are not just so that you can eat them. They're not only, yes, they do eat children. Yes, they do have sex with children. But a lot of these kids and they're not just used for their organs only. A lot of them are used for experiments because there are certain goals that eugenicists have. To reach those goals, you're going to need samples. You're going to need active, live specimens. Now, if you want to do experiments on farm animals or something, mice, that's one thing. But where do you get your hands on human specimens? Now you know. So when you're looking at somebody like Whoopi Goldberg back in the 90s, And when they're sitting around having these conversations with black women, you don't think they had that conversation with Whoopi at one time about how they could use her DNA and how she would be a great specimen? And, you know, because she's these eugenicists that have their own islands where they do experiments on black people. Now they magically got, they're booking her flights to go places. She's that close with them. The reason I don't rule it out is because there's not a lot of black women around them unless they have a purpose for them. There's not very many around. Naomi Campbell, she's in the Epstein's files. What was she doing? She was recruiting. She was finding young women who wanted to be models, women who trusted her, and she would deliver them. And what did they do with those women? They would breed them. They'd pay them. They'll keep the kids, let the woman go back to her life, give her a bunch of money. So, yeah, people are reading these files. They're just not reading them all the way through. They're just jumping to conclusion. Like some of these files, they're telling you what's going on. Sometimes some of us are just in denial about it. No, but yeah, Biden's not, I didn't say he was mentioned in there. I just said, hey, he has an island that was 7 miles away from Little St. James. That's all. Like I said, they developed bioweapons specifically for one group of people. And maybe Whoopi was involved in that. And maybe that's what she's so afraid of, that they're going to figure out that she was involved with that part. And she didn't say anything about it. She's scared. Because I don't think she's scared about getting killed. She's already old. I don't think she's scared of going to jail. I think she's scared of something. She's scared of being embarrassed. But, I mean, even if they found out you were gay, which everybody thinks she thought she was gay anyway, I don't think that's an embarrassment. So what could the problem actually be with Whoopi? It's something else. So look, we're still going through the information. We're reading through the data until we have somebody who's an exact whistleblower, who's asking for immunity, that's going to set the record straight about everything. We really can't make heads or tails of what we're reading in those files. But I'm reading through the science. I'm looking at all the interviews. I'm just piecing it together, and I'm noticing a pattern. Whoopi fits into the pattern of these women right here, and that's the only thing that they will really be good for. And these are all the men that were around during Whoopi's time as being a celebrity. All in the late 80s, early 90s. Whoopi was a superstar back then. So let's not discount her or count her out at all. Yeah, it's been a long time, but she was involved. So let's not forget that. Like and subscribe, share the video. I'll be back on live in about 20 minutes. America first and America only.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com.